Plans for this year's WrestleMania came to much sharper focus this week with the clarity provided with plans for Charlotte Flair and Drew McIntyre, but really the big story is Bobby Lashley being treated like the big deal that he has been treated like for the last year or so. With all this and an apology for the summoning of Shane McMahon, this is your WWE Raw review. The show opened with The Miz celebrating himself and his newly won WWE Championship. The former champion Drew McIntyre was not mentioned on screen at all and only appeared briefly in replays from Elimination Chamber and last week's Gauntlet match. Other than that, he did not feature. However, we would see Bobby Lashley, who would interrupt The Miz's promo alongside MVP, to demand a WWE Championship opportunity that The Miz apparently promised him. The WWE would stick an hour-long timer on the screen several times to try and make people stick around for the second hour, when The Miz would apparently make a decision that had already been made. Our first match was also the longest, that being the non-title match between the new United States champion Matt Riddle and John Morrison. These two have some serious chemistry and I'd like to see a proper feud of it going forwards. Matt Riddle did pick up the win after a very clean moment and a very clean match between both men. I'd love to see more. R-Truth tried and failed to sneak up on Bad Bunny and regain his baby. There'll be more on that as the show goes on. The Miz tried to beg off defending the title against Bobby Lashley to Adam Pearce, who apparently said he would accept whatever decision The Miz makes, and then later on would completely act against this. The New Day beat Retribution. Again. In about 3 minutes. Some of the match lengths are very Attitude Era tonight. Adam Pearce introduced The Miz and Bobby Lashley while they were trying to get down to the simple fact of a WWE Championship match that night, and The Miz tried desperately to avoid it. Braun Strowman came down. Personally, I was expecting Drew McIntyre, but it was indeed Braun Strowman, and as he demanded an opportunity himself, we had the appearance from Shane McMahon, for which myself and my Twitch stream apologises. We have a strange magical power to summon Shane McMahon. The purpose of Shane McMahon's appearance was to put a match together between Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley to determine who would be facing The Miz next week on Raw. Bobby Lashley was automatically in the match, but Braun Strowman could potentially win his way in. The other purpose of Shane McMahon's visit was, of course, Dollar Bill's Y'all. The Lucha House Party took on Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander in a brief but fun tornado tag match. We don't often see tornado tags, and I feel both teams worked really well in this environment. Again, I'd like to see a little more of this. The Hurt Business did pick up the win, as they are the tag team champions they really should, but this feud's actually been quite entertaining when they've remembered that it's happening. Damian Priest beat up Angel Garza again, and then he and Bad Bunny essentially escaped with the 24/7 championship from a number of people running out to get it. The Bad Bunny buddy is now the Bad Bunny bodyguard. So many bees. The WWE played 2 hype packages for Rhea Ripley during the show, announcing that she would be formally moving to Raw essentially once she has a storyline written and prepared, and once the person she is going to be feuding with has wrapped up what they're doing elsewhere. Good. The Raw Women's division needed a bit of a jolt. At the beginning of the third hour, Charlotte and Asuka took on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, but much like at Elimination Chamber, Jax and Baszler were just a means to an end. The storyline here was to be the beginning of the Charlotte and Asuka breakup, a turn as it were by one of them, and it was teased that it would be Asuka after she was pinned in the match and tried to reject the approach and friendliness of Charlotte Flair. It's difficult in this particular position to look at someone rejecting the approach of Charlotte Flair and see that as a heel move. Asuka also took a kick to the face in this match, purely accidentally from Shayna Baszler. Hopefully we'll have more news soon. Apparently she's doing fine. The WWE would follow this up later. Lacey Evans did not appear at all. Ric Flair and Charlotte backstage put context to the matter in what looked like an ad-libbed promo at the point. Charlotte did extremely well here, got a couple of zingers in there. I'd definitely say it's worth it. Probably one of the best, most natural promos she's done, whereas Ric Flair made a point of putting Lacey Evans over. We're not going to see Lacey Evans now for about a year. It looks like we're also not going to see Ric Flair either. Sheamus and Jeff Hardy crossed swords again with very little reference to the previous feud, and Jeff Hardy lost clean. Jeff Hardy's been losing a lot recently. I do worry about what happens with Sheamus next, because it's not just Drew McIntyre who's been thrown out of the WWE title picture. Sheamus looked to be in line for a title shot against Drew McIntyre, and with McIntyre not holding the championship and not looking like he's getting it back for at least a month and a half, Sheamus is essentially done for. Naomi and Lana beat Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke in less than 2 minutes. A good look for Naomi and Lana building up to their tag team title match against Jax and Baszler. Not a great look for Rose and Brooke. Mandy Rose was getting a hell of a push over on SmackDown. What on earth happened? In another extremely short match, Ricochet was beaten by AJ Styles clean and then was beaten by Omos for some reason. It was nice to see these two lock horns again. They have been able to put on good matches when they have tangled, but this felt kind of pointless. Randy Orton would make an appearance during the night, spitting out a black tar-like substance and essentially looking like he's in a lot of pain. I'm guessing Alexa Bliss has learned from Bray Wyatt a little bit of voodoo. Finally, in our main event, which was a match that lasted all of 4 minutes, Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley tangled in a big man match for the ages. They just threw each other about, lifted each other up, showed incredible power, both men. However, within that 5 minutes, Bobby Lashley not only kicked out of the running power slam, but had a clean win after a spear on Braun Strowman. Strowman did kick out immediately after the 3 to try and protect himself a little bit, but that'll do very little because Bobby Lashley attacked him after the match, slapped on the hurt lock, and Braun Strowman was humbled by Bobby Lashley. The lack of appearance by several top stars, including McIntyre, Bliss, The Fiend and Randy Orton, in ring at least, made this a very interesting Raw. They weren't focusing on the same people they normally would, and that gave it a fresh feel. However, there are negatives in that a lot of the matches were far too short or served very little purpose. That said, the current top storyline, that being Bobby Lashley, is a compelling one. It's certainly been made to feel interesting after Elimination Chamber, and the fact that Bobby Lashley has been so protected for his entire run so far is really paying dividends for the WWE right now. While several things feel like they're being rewritten at the last minute, most notably the Charlotte Asuka storyline, which has to be rewritten at the last minute, there are a number of threads that feel well connected, particularly what's going on at the very top of the card, and indeed what's going on with Naomi and Lana building towards a tag title match. The women are doing a good job, even if they're not being particularly well featured, and I would say at the top of the card we're looking very good indeed. Match of the night for me was Riddle versus Morrison, which it's the first time I've said that about Riddle. It felt compelling, it felt interesting, and it was good competitively. Outside of that, this is the first show where I feel Raw has actually started to build some momentum towards WrestleMania. If they can maintain the focus on The Miz and on Bobby Lashley, they'll be onto a winner here for whenever Drew McIntyre does return and start kicking people's heads off. I've been Tom Colohue, a big thank you to everyone who has watched. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't, like if you can, and I will see you next time.